Recording now. There we go. Welcome back to another Plasticon thing. This isn't a review, this is actually a repair video. I know a lot of you guys out there has actually been asking, and I do plan on doing repair videos for some Transformers, especially since a lot of these guys tend to be a bit old and sometimes you guys don't get them in the best condition. So this is a quick video. Basically I'm going to be showing you guys how to do only one of the laser rods. I actually have several here. The thing is, I'm going to break these up so that way when you guys want to go check out one of the videos, you guys can check one out and then be like, bam, this is the car that I'm trying to repair, so that way you don't have to scroll through an entire line of repairs before you find the right one. So I'm planning on doing this for all of them. Unfortunately, electro will not be involved. Why? GPS. You guys know what gold plastic syndrome is. If you're not familiar with gold plastic syndrome, I suggest you look it up. It's basically the degrading of plastic because the elements that were used to put it together cause it to be extremely brittle and want to fall apart. That is why I will not be doing electro. I do have them out here on display because, you know, hey, it's electro, it's got to be one of the laser rods out here. But anyway, this is a quick repair video dealing with primarily two of the major problems that most people have with laser rods. One, battery compartment being slightly corroded and such and not working proper, so that way you can put a battery in there to make the lights actually work. The other thing, and it's the big elephant in the room, the waste issue. The reason why a lot of these guys are very floppy is because the waste issue is much like G.I. Joe. These were literally brought into the entire Transformer world with a G.I. Joe engineering. When I'm speaking about this, I'm speaking about an O-ring. If you guys don't know what an O-ring is, it's these little rubber things. I actually have replacements here. These are replacements for the little O-rings that are actually in these toys. But before I get into that, I want to tell you guys a little bit about the tools you're going to need. I primarily suggest like anything that is a small screwdriver, like your precision screwdrivers. I do highly suggest you get those. Mainly try to get them in little different sizes. If you don't have precision screwdrivers, then I can understand that. I happen to have a all-in-one tool here. It's kind of crazy. I do use this thing quite often. It's got some nice little flip out pieces here. And the cool thing about this, and it actually has a light on the inside, so that way I can use it if I need to use the light. Primarily if you are having issues trying to see and how deep the screw is actually down into the hole on a particular toy. So, the big thing here is how do I get into the battery compartment on this toy. The reason why I do have pliers and such out here is primarily sometimes you have an item that will get caught. Now I do suggest needle nose pliers. That's what these are. Yeah, these are a little bit painted because I tend to use these for painting items as well. If you guys have been following me for a very long time, you know I do customs. A pair of actual real pliers. And God forbid you ever need them, snips just in case something isn't right. There are times you will find mold flashing on toys, and sometimes that's why you will need those. The biggest thing here is when it comes to repairing things, make sure you have the proper tools. The other thing I do suggest is maybe some rubbing alcohol. This is just some cheap stuff from Walmart. And Q-tips. Q-tips are very important for cleaning out the battery compartments on these things. Now, before I get any further into this, you guys are probably wondering, how did I get O-rings? You can actually look these up on eBay and find several sellers out there that will sell O-rings that actually fit G.I. Joe figures. I do believe hardware stores carry them, and I'm not absolutely sure what the size is on them, but I know the sizes are literally littered out there on the internet. All you literally have to do is type in replacement G.I. Joe rubber band, and bam, there it is. It's going to be right there. it's literally in the Google search. Like I barely even started typing it in and bam, there it was. So it was crazy. It comes up very fast. Cool thing is these things are pretty nice. Let me take one out of here real quick. And I got a lot of, like 10 of them, so, you know, the best thing to do is to have more than one, just in case something isn't right. You gotta think, it's a rubber band. Things aren't always perfect. Sometimes the rubber doesn't adhere correct. As you can see, it's very tactile, very bendable type of rubber band, and this is the problem. The problem with a lot of these toys throughout the years, the rubber band's actually located down in this area here, and they do degrade after a while. They can actually snap in half. And that's one big problem I see. Electro here tends to be the one I also see suffering a lot, mainly because the rubber band does go out on him fairly easily. Due to the fact that this thing is gold plastic, it tends to get more tossed around. I see more Electros probably torn in half than I do the other ones, but these guys do get a little wobbly staying on a shelf. But before we get further into that, let's tackle the battery compartment issue. This one here, particularly right now, I'm not absolutely sure how great the batteries are in this. I do know for a fact when I press his little hood ornament here, it should light up, but it's not lighting up. And it should light up this engine manifold. A lot of people thought the actual headlights light up. They don't. It's just the engine part. It's this intake right here, so it should light up. Much like good old Jolt here. As you can see, Jolt lights up just fine. He's actually got his light up gimmick. Now, not all of you guys out there know of these guys as illuminators as well, so they do both. But the big thing here is trying to get into this compartment here. Now, the first thing I always suggest is to pop the LED part here with the wire. You always want to try to get that part out first. And it's obviously sometimes kind of tricky to pull this out. It just kind of lodges down in there. You just pull it directly out and it should come out. Now these things here do get a little knackered over a while because obviously you can see it's kind of shaped to the shape of the car because it is a wire. I do suggest if you are trying to straighten these really, really well, maybe use a bit of I would use like a hair dryer or something like that to kind of get the rubber more pliable. So that way you're not straining any of the wires that are in here. Because the biggest problem with a lot of these things is these tend to break after a while. Now the cool thing here is there's literally right here one little screw. And that one little screw right there literally is extremely easy to take off. I'm just going to take one of my smaller precision. It's a Phillips head. It's not a flat head. I'm going to get down in here and then just unscrew it. And it comes out fairly easy. I do suggest when you do this stuff, go very slow. That way you don't overstrain the screw or strip out the plastic, because the plastic in the toy is literally what your threading is. And then you have to kind of wiggle your fingers down in there, but you should be able to pull the battery compartment top off. Now you can clearly tell on mine right here, it's got some corrosion going on right here. That could be the only issue. But you can tell two batteries down in there. The positive and then the negative. And then you're just going to kind of pop it on top like this. And they should pop right out. Now something I am already noticing is a little more corrosion down in here. Now, as you can actually see here, you can see the corrosion down in that area right there, and then none right there. Now this happens over time with any toy. I'm going to tell you right now, this is actually a very good guide to showing you guys how to fix any issue whatsoever on any type of battery operated toy. That's one big thing a lot of guys out there are like, oh well, how do I fix this particular issue? Now, when it comes to the very small stuff like this, I normally will take just like a very small tip screwdriver And I will just literally go through here and just kind of scrape a little bit of it off. I know some people out there is like, why don't you use like a wire brush or something? Well, I think a wire brush is a little too abrasive sometimes. And sometimes you can just use sandpaper for this. As you can see, I've literally cleaned a lot of that green stuff off just by scraping it. It's not too hard to do. It's a very simple thing to do. And the biggest thing here is to make sure there's not any extreme corrosion, because if there's any extreme corrosion, say I took this apart and this here was completely rusted through, and if I barely even touched it, it's so brittle, falls apart. If that's the case, then my suggestion to you is possibly to try to seek out another, maybe like a junker. There's a little bit of corrosion here, even on the battery. Sometimes you just scrape a little bit of that off. Yeah, see, it comes off all nice and clean. Sometimes this will actually happen just to any toy whatsoever. Corrosion is a big thing sometimes. And if you just kind of get in there, maybe even with your fingernail too, and just kind of scrape on it a little bit, it will clean itself off really well. And then sometimes the battery itself won't even be dead, it's just got so much corrosion built up between it that it can cause such problems to happen. Now the issue here we had was the real bad corrosion right there on that one contact. What I'll do is come in here and just kind of scrape on it. And when I'm scraping, I'm doing a bit of a downward scrape. I'm not actually trying to dig the screwdriver into the plastic. I'm letting the screwdriver kind of just glide across the contact. And yeah, you'll blow on it just to try to see if maybe you can knock any dust out of there. Because you will get dust, and that's one thing, like, there's not so much corrosion that's going to come off here, it's going to completely ruin your day or anything. It's just going to have enough in there that could be an issue over time. But this is a very easy way of fixing one of your laser rods. Now, like I said, if there's high corrosion to the point that you cannot repair it, then I do highly suggest you go out there and maybe seek out like a junker, one that's broken, one that's got a lot of problems, something like that. And then maybe see if you can salvage parts off of that. Now, this does have quite a bit on it, so I will end up using a little bit of rubbing alcohol, obviously, on it. This is a simple thing you can do. Just take your Q-tip and obviously just dunk it in there. And the thing is, you don't want to bring your Q-tip out soaking wet, so I normally will kind of roll it around the top. I try to get the biggest part of the alcohol off the swab, because you never want to take a soaking wet swab and put it against any kind of electronics at all. I mean, it will ruin something if you're not careful. But, you know, that's fairly damp, which is what you want. You don't want anything any worse. And the bad thing about this, like if you're using alcohol, keep in mind that if you have a lot of paint apps on a toy, it could possibly take the paint off the toy. So just make sure what you're doing, you're only touching the parts that you want to touch. Now I'm taking this alcohol and going in there, and I'm just kind of sticking the Q-tip against there and just spinning it against that contact, trying to get some of that off there. And then I'll take the other end of the Q-tip and go in and just kind of dry it out a little bit. You can see I've gotten quite a bit of the corrosion off of there. It's not perfect, but I mean, it's extremely hard to make these things absolutely perfect unless you get in there with maybe like, if you have a Dremel that actually has like a very light abrasive thing, you might be able to put it in there to get that off, but I really don't suggest doing it that much, because you could possibly destroy the contact itself and then it won't ever work again after that. But with the amount of build up here, it'll probably take a few minutes. see what I can do. Because the biggest thing is you're trying to get the bare metal to come back out from the situations you have. I know this was a request by one of my viewers when it comes to repair, and I will get around to that guy as soon as I can. And hopefully this will help, because mine actually has no corrosion in the battery bay. But it does have a fair amount of corrosion in here. But you know, this happens. I mean, it's not something that you can really prevent, other than just never have batteries in your toys. Or just not even really care about that gimmick, which some people don't. Some people are just like, oh, I'm just glad we got the toy and it transforms just fine. And that's understandable. I've cleaned it up pretty good. It's not, like I said, it's never going to be 100% perfect. And it's pretty corroded. I mean, it's bad. But I'm going to try this out here and see if I can get this to work. I'm going to put the batteries back in. This is the only way to really test it. See if you've gotten anywhere with it by putting the batteries right back into the toy. And then reassemble the door. Which, this door is kind of tricky if you're not careful. You got these two little tabs here that are sticking up. These two tabs here have got to go down inside these two little grooves that are literally right above the battery panel. And let's see here. Now see, that since I'm testing it, I don't want to screw it down all the way, but you can tell that either my batteries are dead or it's not coming up with anything there. But I mean, this is a way that you can possibly try to clean it. I know that's not going to be perfect. To be honest, I think the batteries are dead on this one. But the thing is, you don't want to really do that too much to it unless you've really got like a very, very good abrasive thing. Now, I do happen to have files as well. And sometimes the files will help. And I just screwed that right back in. Yep. And that's just, like I said, that's just a little bit of advice to the people out there that want to fix their laser rods. Now, I know not every one of them are going to be perfect. I actually have tried fixing this one several times, and I can never seem to get this one here to actually fire off and work. Now, like I said, that's a bit of advice. This one here, when I first got him, he actually did not work at all. So I did actually fix this one here, which it does, like I said, it works just fine. But let's get into that whole O-ring problem, because to me the O-ring problem is actually a bigger problem than the whole light-up gimmick. The light-up gimmick's great when it works, but to be honest, I like to stand my transformers up, and a lot of times these guys just want to fall over. So the first thing you'll do is you just transform it like you normally would. And then I normally will flip this up here and then get these arms here up out of the way. Now the area you're trying to go for are these three screws here. Reason being is because this is going to remove this entire panel. This whole panel here comes off, and then you're able to get to the O-ring. Now, the O-ring is buried really deep in there. You can actually see that black piece right there. Right here that you're actually seeing. That is actually the O-ring that is in there. These O-rings, like I said, it's very difficult to tell, but they do degrade over time. Sometimes I can actually see a little bit of cracking going on. And the other thing is, these things will stretch out over time. And if they stretch out, you got really, really floppy legs. I mean, his legs aren't terrible, but I mean, I've actually stood him up before. I don't have him fully transformed here, but as you can see, he really has issues trying to stand up. But see, I finally got him, but I mean, he's leaning forward, which is one of the biggest problems with good old Jolt here. He's great when you can get him to stand up, and the fact is you have to twist the waist. Now this is the problem. You have people out there that don't know which direction they twisted the waist. If you don't know which direction you twisted the waist, you might want to actually look. And you really can't tell. So my suggestion is, you know, shake him a little bit. See which direction his feet go. See, his feet went directly to the direction that he's actually twisted at. See, he just... he does twist that direction, and that's the problem. That's one of the things you're looking for. You're looking for the direction that you actually twisted him. That is to help you guys avoid from breaking the rubber band. Now, let's go ahead and get into not tearing him up, but taking him apart. Now, I'm going to use like a smaller screwdriver to get in here, and I'm going to have to remove these 3 screws here. This one, and then this one. And they're very tight, so I've actually got a little larger precision screwdrivers as well. Like I said, my thing is your mileage may vary here when it comes to the tools that you have. If you don't have precision screwdrivers, they're fairly cheap. See, I was able to pop that one loose just fine there. Sometimes you need like a little bigger ones. These smaller ones here work very well, but if it's an extremely tight one, you might want to get something that's got a little more of a handle like these. And I'm going to unscrew all of them to make sure they're going to come out before I completely take them out. Now the biggest thing here is remember what screws you took out of where. Sometimes all I'll do is I'll just partially take something apart and leave the screws within wherever I had them. You should just pop apart. I probably have these screws in too far. So. Yeah, I'm going to take these out all the way. I'm going to be like, okay, I took these 2 here, so these are my shoulder screws. This is where we come out of his shoulders. And then take this here off. That came out of his waist area. Now the big thing here is taking him apart. I'm basically kind of rocking him to get him to come apart, but see now he started kind of just coming straight apart. I'm pulling the whole front piece here off. I'll set that aside. His head is going to want to pop off because his head's just on a mushroom peg, so just set it aside as well. And now you can see that's the O-ring. And you can actually, if you can really tell, this thing has got a lot of cracked pieces. It's very cracking all the way through it. And the crazy thing here is you'll just take this right here and just kind of turn it here, and it should come directly off. Now it goes directly over this plastic piece. You have to remember that one, especially when you start putting it back together. Now you can see you got a whole like waist piece here just kind of dangling. Well, if you notice, if I put tension on it, the legs, they just won't, they don't dangle as much. So see, tension shows you, I mean, the rubber band makes a major difference on the tension on his legs. Alright, now obviously you're like, okay, well how do I get that out? Well, you squeeze this and then you push down, and the whole piece should pop out. Now, if you're having issues trying to get it to pop out like I am, twist the rubber band a little bit, because this is a very, very tender type of thing to do. Now, what you can do is you can take a flathead screwdriver and go in between here. You see the little bitty silver part right here. You're just going to push on that little silver piece because that's the piece that you're trying to get out. because the rest of it will follow when it does. As you can see, it just popped it completely out. And then just pull it straight out. And there you go. And then I'll take this off, and you can tell this thing is very, I mean, it's got a really good crease going on here. It's literally, like I said, this is not in extremely horrible shape, but you can tell it literally is the same O-ring. It might be a little more stretched, but it's a little thin here on the top and the bottom. But if you actually look at the thickness between that and this, it's about the same. You gotta think, this O-ring has been in this toy since 93. Since 1993. That is a long time for an O-ring to be in there. So all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this right here. I'm going to take this O-ring and I'll put it right back over the loop. And see how it just kind of slid right up in there just like it should. And then we're going to force this piece here right back through this hole here. Now it goes in that direction. So you gotta remember, this is the front of the crotch, this is the back. Now remember that when you do this, because then you're like, oh wait, I put it on backward. Well, it's gonna be kind of hard to take them back apart again after you get this in there. But then try to feed this rubber band through that hole. And as you can see, it's going through just fine. I do suggest you have fingernails when you do this. And then you're going to kind of have to twist it a little bit because you have to get that metal piece through there as well. See, it popped out on me, so you got to be kind of careful when you're doing this. It's a very, very patience-tested thing, so you got to think, if I'm going to do this, you better sit aside a little while to repair this toy. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck doing this for a bit and you wonder why you've gone through your 4 O-rings because you kept snapping them. And if you notice, so the hook is actually in a angle. It's supposed to be in an angle because it helps hold that O-ring in there. Kind of pull through. And as I'm doing this, I'm trying to push the this piece up. Now you do have a bit of a rubber bushing here that came out with it. You're just going to have to push that rubber bushing back down, because that is going to come out as well, because it kind of just holds the whole thing together if you notice. So you just basically have to reposition this rubber bushing back over the hook. And I'm doing this just with my fingers. I'm just pushing down on the bushing itself to get it around that plastic, or not that plastic, but that little metal piece there. It'll take a couple minutes here. We'll get it. See how it's kind of catching right here, where it's kind of looks like it's a little knackered. It's not actually knackered, you just gotta, I pushed it down there with my finger, and there you go. You gotta think, whenever you put this in there, you notice his legs aren't falling or anything, because I'm putting tension on that rubber band. So we're gonna basically reverse what we just did. So you're going to want to remember how he transforms, because that's the biggest thing. You have to remember, okay, when I do this, I flip his feet, okay, they're going to have to go this way because his feet fall up this direction toward the back. So you're going to take this O-ring here and flip it and push it around that part. And this part here can be a bit tricky considering this is a newer O-ring, so it's got a little more, it's a little thicker than the old one. which is good because it's what you want. And I'm just pushing it in there with my fingernails. If you notice, I'm just taking my fingernails and shoving them in there. I know if you guys out there that don't have any fingernails that are really, you know, big enough, you can take it. I really suggest like something extremely like, not really necessarily a screwdriver, because if you do, you can possibly cut the rubber band, but maybe like a toothpick, or I mean even like say you got one of these and this is a plastic straw, well you just cut the ends off of it and use the plastic straw part and just push it in, because that'll help. But if you notice that right there holds together pretty good. Now we're just going to take this right here and just put this part here back together. And when you do this, don't forget his head, because his head did come off. And his head will come off because that's just what it does. And then his head will actually go between this little post right here. Just like so. And then we're just going to put him right back together the way he was. Now this right here, you got this whole like little curvy part here. Just keep in mind when you're putting this back together that you got to try to line everything back up. And when you do this, make sure you get everything nice and flush, because they shouldn't have, like, you see how it's flush here and there's a gap there and a flush there. Make sure when you do this that you have him fully put back together. You want to shake him around a little bit. It hurt. There you go. Now, put his little shoulder screws back in. Takes a couple minutes here, just screw it in. Then you got the waist one here, and you want to screw that one in. Now, like I said, when you tighten these down, you don't ever want to over tighten anything. But if you notice, his legs aren't as wobbly. I mean, they're going to have some kind of movement because, I mean, you got to think, this is just tension from a rubber band. But he should be able to stand up a lot better. Which mine, I don't think either way would have really done any good, because, I mean, he's still kind of top heavy. These guys really were. I'm actually not afraid to twist this now, considering when I twisted it, that actually gave it more tension. You know, I think not all the laser rods are like this, though. I think that's the reason being because he happens to have the twist to do his thing, you know. Mess with him here a little bit and see if I can get him in a pose here a little bit. There we go. There you go. And it stands up pretty good. I mean, its legs are nowhere near as floppy. I mean, before his legs would have kind of fallen. So, and the other thing you need to keep in mind is whenever you're taking these guys apart, the ball joint is not really a ball joint. It's got a slit here and it's got a slit there. It has no slit toward the back. So you need to keep that in mind whenever you're actually trying to do anything with these guys. So that way you don't end up over tightening anything. But yeah, he's better. I mean, like I said, it's never perfect. The big thing is this is a very old O-ring, and it had a lot of cracking in it. And my thing is many times they transform these guys, they tend to, like, you can see his legs are turning the correct direction. That's so that way you can actually transform him. So that way you don't have to worry about that O-ring snapping in half, because if you got to think, if a child had this toy whenever they were, you know, really young, and they didn't really take very good care of it, and they kept twisting this could actually be almost to the verge that's going to snap in half. And I know this guy's the one that's the most crazy out of them, because you actually have to spin his waist. The other ones you don't have to do that with, and that's what's the biggest thing is here. Anyhow, this has been Plasticon. This has been a crazy little kind of insight on how to fix a laser rod. Now, I know this one wasn't perfect, but you know, this kind of gives you guys a bit of an idea. I'm actually not afraid to sit him on a shelf now, because there's times I was kind of afraid to transform him, considering the O-ring was possibly going to go bad in. And I know that he tends to keep twisting in one direction. Well, over time, the memory of the rubber band, it will form that direction. I mean, you got to think. It is a rubber band, so that's what's crazy about these guys. They actually have some silliness, and it's funny how he's still standing and holding that. Anyway, this has been Plasticon. This has been a quick little repair video. Hope you guys enjoyed that. I will have more for the other two as well, and I will catch you guys later. And that's it for now. Bye. Welcome back to another Plasticon repair video, because you know I'm doing these. Anyhow, if you guys actually checked out the previous one, I went through good old Jolt here. Jolt, Volt. Okay, I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I get these two guys' names mixed up. It's very easy to do. How about the orange one? Anyhow, I did a repair video to him to actually fix his waist, and it's actually a lot better than the previous rubber band that was in there that I actually had to fix. I'm still having to sort out the electronics issue with him. It's not like it's going to be an easy thing to do, but you know, that's just how it is with when it comes to older toys. Most people buy these mainly so that way they can transform them and pose them. They don't really play with the electronic gimmick that much. Anyhow, let's dive into this guy. I have actually already done a whole thing here with the spread of tools, so here you go. Here are the tools you will need for this job. Okay, now we're back. Anyhow, let's get on with this. Oh yes, Coca-Cola is very important. This is the most important thing of the whole entire repair process, is having a Coca-Cola. Hey, I like Coke, sorry. Anyway, let's get on to this. Basically, with him, I had already previously expressed that I had a working one, and he works just fine. Works very well. Kind of hard to see with all the lighting in here. But in order to get into that battery compartment, we're going to take one of our little precision screwdrivers here and pop this thing here open. And what's crazy about this guy in particular, unlike his little counterpart there, I'm going to take the screw right out. The whole thing comes out. And this is kind of funny because I actually do have some corrosion going on in this one. Although it's working, it has corrosion. Doesn't that make any sense? No, it doesn't. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and clean this one here up as well. And I already expressed that when you're doing this, don't have like a whole lot of pressure on the pieces here themselves when you're using a screwdriver to kind of scrape that off, and then sometimes you can just pull it off. You can take a like I said, a Q-tip, kind of clean it off there a little bit. See, it's all nice and pretty now, shiny. Well, sometimes they turn out really well and sometimes they don't. That's the biggest thing though. Like, I'm going to express this again if you guys did not watch the previous one. If you pull one of these off and this is all rusted and this is so brittle that it's going to break or fall apart I highly suggest just going out there and trying to source another part to replace it, because unless you're one of those kind of guys that's very into redoing a rivet, because that's what that is a rivet that goes through there, and be able to completely replace this little piece of metal, which I know some of you guys out there are very crafty. If you're good at that, do that. If you can't afford the, the actual replacement part. Anyway, I'm going to pop these two batteries out, which obviously just kind of fall right out sometimes, which is fine, because, it's better if I do. And I do have some corrosion that's going on right here. This seems to be a common occurrence on that particular contact, but you can see I've got some kind of corrosion going on there, so I'm going to get this Q-tip and get down in there and kind of rub on it a little bit. Kind of really trying to dig it in there to get all that gunk out. But I cleaned it up pretty good just by doing that. The other thing, like I said, look at the batteries themselves. Sometimes the batteries have a little bit of gunk on them. Sometimes you can just rub it off with your fingers. I do suggest you go wash your hands after you get done doing this kind of thing, so you don't get residual battery acid all over everything. Because it's not so much a battery acid as it is just a corrosion buildup. It isn't going to hurt you. It's just not edible. But anyway, I'm going to break out the good old alcohol here that I mentioned. This is a simple thing. Like I said, you just want to dip the just the tip of this in your alcohol solution. And like I said, I roll the I normally roll the Q-tip around as I'm doing this to get all the major stuff off, because like I said, you never want to soak, or never ever want to absolutely soak electronics. And I'm just going to take this in here and spin it around a little bit, try to get some of that corrosion off, clean it up a little bit. I'm going to take the other end here and dry it off real well. And I'm going to just do that once more because it's cleaning up pretty nicely. And there you go. You can tell, like, it's not absolutely perfect, which none of these are, but you can absolutely tell that it's a lot cleaner than it was before. It was very green just a second ago. And then test the toy. You're just going to pop the batteries back in. That's your positive. This is your negative. If you guys happen to have the instruction booklet, it's a good way of keeping track of that. It's also written on the door though, so see positive, negative little things right there. But most people are very confused on which side's the positive side and which side's the negative side for your little watch batteries, and yeah, it can be kind of a pain, and I agree. But there we are. Press the button. Oh no, I guess not even want to work. It's like I broke it or something. Isn't that weird how that was working? No, it's not. That's strange. Anyway, I'll mess with that part later. That's just a guide just to show you how to clean up the compartment. You just basically take the things in and out a couple times. It more than likely, I could just have like a battery in there that's just faulty too, because those batteries are pretty old. I kind of suggest going out and buying brand new ones myself. Anyway, let's get into the major devil advocate, and that is this waste issue. If you guys don't know this, the wastes on all the laser rods is literally a G.I. Joe waste. They had used these little things here called O-rings. And they can look like this when you get done removing them. This one here's one of the previous one I did, and it's kind of cracked. It's very stretched. It could cause a lot of issues, especially if you're trying to stand them up. If you're trying to get them to stand up, this guy here, he stood up okay, but he tends to stand a lot easier now than he did before, especially with that replacement piece of O-ring. Now he's still top heavy. That's something you can't do anything about. But at least the rubber band will actually hold better. The first thing you're going to want to do here, though, is you're going to want to transform him. And then flip the this portion here up just a little bit. On here, you can do that if you want. I suggest kind of just like a little bit. And here, one other thing I did fail to talk about again was the wires for these guys. Every time you tend to get these, you'll pull this here out, and it will want to literally, it'll do what it's doing right there. It conforms to the car itself. In order to get this to really straighten out very well, I kind of, like I said, suggested before, I do suggest you take like a just a hair dryer and just get the wires warm enough so that way they'll bend more. The thing is especially if you have like say your collection room is not in the most, I don't know, climate controlled places, maybe it's a little cold in there and such, I do suggest you be very careful with the wires that are on these guys because they can crack over time, much like Shockwave. A lot of you guys out there know G1 Shockwave has a hose attached to him that will possibly crack over time. Well, that's mainly due to the changes in temperature and moisture within an area. Alright, anyway, enough of the babbling about that. Let's get in and talk about what we're going to do here. I'm going to use my trusty larger handled precision screwdriver. This is literally the same size as most precision screwdrivers. I'm going to be removing this screw, and this one. Now, I do suggest when you do this that you keep track of what screw goes where. I call these the shoulder screws, and I'll call this the crotch screw or the waist screw, either one. I'm going to come in here and unscrew this real quick. And the thing is with these are kind of trapped behind this this hinge piece here. So just be very mindful when you're doing this, so that way you don't mess up the hinges to the hood. Otherwise you won't be able to transform it very well. I'm going to kind of dig in there a little bit just to get it to come out. And I'm not talking about like dig, I'm talking about like pressure. That's one thing I'm talking about there. You want to apply a consistent pressure. See, that screw literally came out. That's good. Sometimes you'll have to kind of bump the toy or something like that to get the piece to come out. I know a lot of you guys out there are very, very like not manhandling toys. Well, I took everything apart, everything from mini bots to the biggest thing I literally have disassembled was a Fortress Maximus. Took about 4 hours to disassemble, about another 4 to put back together. That thing's an undertaking. But like I said, when you're doing this, you want to apply a consistent pressure to the screw, and then just let the screwdriver do the work. You don't want to push too hard because you can strip, not the screws. I'm keeping these two separate. That's the waist screw, that's the two for the, which I'm pretty sure they're all the same size screw. I'm just not absolutely sure if they are or not. But the biggest thing here is you got to make sure that when you're taking these guys apart that you're not putting too much pressure on the screws themselves, because the part it's screwing into is literally plastic. It will snap, it will break, it can strip over time. There are tips and tricks in order to fix that, but I do suggest you just put a constant pressure and be careful with what you're doing here. And now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pull him directly apart. Now the O-ring is located back down in here. I can actually see cracking already starting on this one here, but it's way down in there. It's kind of hard to see, but there you go, right there. But anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull him directly apart. I'm going to lay him flat like this as I'm doing this, so that way I don't lose parts. So I'm going to pull this completely off. We'll set that aside. The headpiece here is supposed to slide up and down. It's the whole like seat portion. I will pull that directly out because that's just going to fall. Now I do suggest just, you can leave the arms attached. You can take them off if you want, but I don't suggest actually taking them off. As you can see here, this is where the O-ring is located on him. I can see so much cracking going on in this, it's insane. But anyway, that is one of the biggest problems with this guy, is he literally has a very loose race. But I'm going to take this off just like this. It just slides right off. And then, as you can see, you've got a whole like very loose waist piece here that just rocks back and forth. This will literally come off if you just turn it a couple times here. Just something I'm noticing here on this one is you just turn it here, push this down, and it should pop right out. And there's something I'm noticing that's different on this one. This does not have a rubber grommet on the inside, much like his counterpart did. So you got to keep that in mind when you're doing this. Now, if this had previously been took apart, I don't know if it had. There might have been a rubber grommet in there that was just not put back in like it should have. As you can see, the rubber band's actually on a hook. You just unhook it, take it off. You can clearly tell that the memory of the rubber band has really took its toll on this one. Let's set this aside. It's just, I mean, you can tell. It's bad. It's a very bad rubber band. I mean, I could do this, and it's literally going right back to the same shape. Now, you guys are probably wondering about the replacements. These replacements, like I said, I had ordered these off the internet. I got them off of eBay quite a while back, but I ordered like a set, and it was like 10 of them. This was like $3, something like that. It was really cheap. It was not expensive at all. Very easy, cheap fix. I mean, it's such a cheap fix. I really suggest you guys go out there and do this, especially if you need to replace the rubber bands, because it's just, this stuff even happens to G.I. Joes out there. But as you can see, it's got a hook right there, and you're going to put the hook, or put this right in. You don't have to put a lot of pressure, just literally it will just roll and pop right in, because these are really, really nice, so they're not crazy. Now you're going to have to push it kind of an oval shape. That way we can force it back through the hole there. And then the key here is patience. You're going to have to turn this a little bit, pull and push at the same time. And if you notice something here, whenever I actually put pressure on those legs, they're not going to move much. Well, that's what's going to happen when you end up putting this back over the part. And see, it's all on there, all nice and pretty like. You're going to take this portion here and drop this back in, and as you're doing this, you're going to loop it over that loop piece right there. You can already tell he's holding a lot better. I didn't even put anything on him. I didn't put like nothing at all other than just loop him on there. Now, if you guys are really, really crazy, like I am sometimes, you're like, there's so much dust in this, how do I get the dust off? Well, yeah, take a Q-tip and just dust it. Like, it's really, this right here would be a very hard piece here to really clean. If you guys really want to get in there and actually clean your toys, this is a good way of doing it. I'm going to try to clean all this nastiness off of him before I reassemble him, because he does have some, I call this plastic dust, because you can tell from like just over time it's scraped, and that just happens, it does its thing. But after that, I'm going to push this all back together, hold it like this, and then I'm going to drop the seat section back in, just like so. And then I'm going to take the whole other part here and lay it on top. And then I'm going to try to put the waist piece back where it needs to be. It's not wanting to do that. Okay, I know why. I did get kind of ahead of myself here. You're going to want to take this, I'm going to take this piece here back off real quick. But you're going to want to take the rubber band and kind of push there's two little portions right here in the back right here that's kind of a groove. You'll want to kind of shove those pieces of rubber band back into those. That way it holds it in position, it puts more tension on it, and it's going to make it a lot easier to put together. Plus it also keeps the rubber band from protruding the sides here as you're trying to put it together. It's just something I should have done before. But I'll put the head portion back in, and then reassemble this part here. Now, this part here is a bit tricky because you've got the whole ball joint piece here. You just have to be very patient when you're trying to put these guys back together sometimes. There's a lot of moving parts. If you guys have ever took apart, there we go. The biggest thing here is when you're doing this, make sure your seam that's here is completely flush all the way around. So that way, you know, it's not gonna oil a lot. And then we're just gonna put our screws back in the holes. Like I said, when you're putting this back in, just let the screw guide its way in. Because if you don't, you can over thread it. Now when you start feeling a little bit of tension, the good thing about the screwdriver part here for gripping, I'm putting pressure with the palm of my hand, but I'm also turning it by the rubber part. I know it's got enough tension because the rubber part of the screwdriver is turning and the screwdriver itself has stopped. It's a little tip for you guys out there that want to take apart toys or anything like that. I mean, this is a very, very good guide for that kind of thing as well. Line it back up. Let the screw do its own work. And sometimes you can tell it's not quite in. Just try to give it a little bit of a nudge there. You can normally tell when something's about where it needs to be, because if you're obviously putting it together and the screw is protruding where it shouldn't be protruding, it obviously needs a little more pressure put on it to make it actually go in the hole. And then we're going to put the waist screw on. Now this should tighten him up a little bit. It's not going to be 100% perfect. Like I said, I believe that probably the person that owned this before me had tried doing this before or something. But I don't believe they did, because that's a lot stiffer than what he was before. If you notice, his legs don't droop quite as bad. They are a little loose. If you want to, you can twist the waist. But that normally sometimes will fix it and sometimes it won't. So. Okay. There's something here I've noticed on mine. You can see down in there the rubber band's actually still protruding, and I can't quite push this back all the way. It's probably the best thing here to do. Put this up. Push the seats up. Because obviously, that's not correct. Then push this rubber band back. I'm actually doing this with my fingers. And try to set it where it needs to be. Set, like flush. So you can actually get your fingers in there to that rubber band. And you should be able to push this down just fine. So it goes right over that hole. Because there's actually a groove that's cut out within the seats. They're way down in there. You're gonna have a bit of a gap like that, but that's fine because whenever you do, transforming, this will actually push back all the way. But that's not too bad. That's actually a pretty decent fix, considering these guys tend to over time not want to stand up very well anyway. It seems that his head tends to get caught. If you guys have ever owned this guy, you guys will know that the forehead tends to catch a lot because you have to push the seats up in order to get his head to pop up. Sometimes it'll catch, sometimes you just gotta wiggle the whole assembly together. There we go. Let's transform him real quick. Boom, boom, boom. And that's actually just as bad as the original one. And I think I know what the problem is. The problem is the guy that had it before me probably did not have the rubber grommet. And he forgot to put the rubber grommet piece in, and that is why he is so wiggly. So, we're going to address that issue real quick. By disassembling it again. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to use one of the old pieces that I have over here, one of the older O-rings. Let's see if I can't makeshift a way to tighten that, because that is not right at all. Yeah, this whole piece here is supposed to actually have like a piece of rubber that pushes against everything. So I'm going to take this old piece. This is the older grommet. And I'm going to put that in here. I'm going to try to make a try a new one. There's plenty of new ones. Okay. What I'm going to try to do here is see if I can get this newer rubber piece . That's quite too big. You notice it's way too big for that, so. Go back to the old one. Yeah, that older one tends to fit in the hole a lot better. Because you notice it's actually shrunk some, so it actually fits down in there. Now, when I'm talking about rubber grommet is, if you go back and look at the other video, I'll put it up here somewhere. You can see that it actually has an actual grommet in there that holds everything together. That this one's actually missing. And I wasn't aware this thing was missing that. So that's why this is a quick makeshift fix job type of thing right here. And you know what? This isn't bad. I think it's actually tightened up quite a bit. I noticed that. Put that waste piece back in. And this isn't going to overstrain anything, because you got to think it's rubber. Rubber's meant to flex and bend and all that happy stuff. So, if anything, this is going to add a little bit more tension to his waist to keep him from actually falling. Yeah, I'm noticing already a major difference. Major difference. And that right there must be the one reason why this guy is so wobbly. So I was wondering why he never stood up correct. Because some people, when they I mean, the guy probably owned it before. I mean, you never know. Even the rubber piece itself might have degraded and fallen out, because all that is a little rubber grommet type of thing that just shoves down in there. Now, I'm not absolutely sure what shape that would be, considering it's kind of like a cup, but there. Oh yeah, look at that. Much better. Push his little rubber band part here back up where it needs to be so that I can transfer them correctly. Yep, fix that. That's about the only gripe I really have about this guy here is his head tends to get caught very easily. Okay. There we go. Alright. There. Fine. Fixed. Now you can stand up. Much better. Yeah, he actually does stand up better. That fixed that issue pretty easily. That's if you actually have a rubber grommet that's usable. I mean, he's standing up just fine now. I mean, you guys saw him earlier. He was a floppy mess. He would not stand up at all. But that did fix him. The biggest thing is, though, there's the thing is tension that's put on that rubber band that's on the inside. Now, if you don't happen to have these, or a way of getting hold of these, there are hardware stores out there that actually carry these little rubber grommets. My suggestion to you, if you guys do need rubber little grommets like that and you don't know what size they are, take the toy apart and take that piece with you, and then you'll be able to find out if you have to go to a hardware store to get it. If not, I just order it online because it's easier. But I feel like I broke my toy worse than I did. Actually, I didn't. I know the whole laser light thing is just, I don't know why it's not working now. That's silly. Anyway, this has been Plasticon. This has been yet another little quick fix your toy video, because you know these are very interesting. A lot of people like to see these. But anyhow, that's all I got for now for this one. So I'll catch you guys later, because I have plenty more coming. I'll catch you around. Bye. Welcome back to another Plasticon repairs things video. Today we're going to be looking at repairing our Generation 2 laser rods. I've already done Volton. Talking about fixing Charlie horses. Welcome back to another Plasticon repair thingy. Doing that again. Welcome back to another Plasticon repair thingy. Today we're going to be taking a look at repairing our Generation 2 repaired, like not repaired, but our Generation 2 laser rods, because laser rods are cool and a lot of people out there really like them. Two of the biggest problems these guys tend to have, other than gold plastic syndrome like good old Electro over here, is the actual light up gimmick and the waste portion. Waste portion on a lot of these tend to degrade over time. Not to mention the lighting gimmick. Now I do know that you guys go back and check out my Volt and Jolt review, or not reviews but repairs. I happen to have fixed both of them. I did take a gander though, because this guy here happened to have not had a rubber grommet, but the other one did. Well, I took a look at the inside of this one, and this one does not either. And you got to think, I have not had these in my collection of my entire life. I've had these quite a while, and these two here came from complete different sellers. Neither one of them have a rubber grommet on the inside. So I think that was a manufacturing choice. I don't really like that because the fact is it's hard to fix. We'll get more into that here in a few minutes. Basically the part that lights up on this guy here is supposed to be these two little pieces up here. It's not the headlights. A lot of people think, oh, the headlight's supposed to light up because they're all translucent. No, they don't. It's just supposed to be the engine block. The engine block's not lighting up on him. The easiest way to get into his, is you flip this down, his battery compartment's right here. And one thing before I get into that though, dealing with the wire, because you got a wire here that kind of wraps around. When you take this off to actually put this in the hand with the sword, they tend to hold a shape. When they hold that shape, they're just shaping themselves to the vehicle itself because that's the way the piece is actually tucked and put away. A way to repair that or to help with that portion so that way you don't end up cracking it is to use a hairdryer. A hairdryer works very well for this kind of thing, and it's just something I highly suggest you probably go out there and get. So that way you can be able to pose the wire and not worry about straining anything. Now to get to his battery compartment's actually right here. You just flip open the entire front of it and it's bam, right there. See, battery compartment. Simple to get to. But anyway, we'll just take a screwdriver here, and I did go over the tools. Let's go further into the tools section right now. Okay, we're good. We're good. We're good. Got your tools. Got your rings. Gotta have your Coca-Cola. Better have that Coca-Cola. Anyway, if you don't like Coke, you don't care. I like Coke. Anyway, we're gonna take a screwdriver here, precision screwdriver. Preferably got my trusty one here. It's got the larger handle, and we're going to remove that screw that's right there. Now this in here, you can tell it's kind of knackered a little bit, and that does happen over time. But put a little bit of pressure and it should kind of come unscrewed. And it's funny because I did the last one. The last one, it was working, then it quit working. And that's the thing with these guys. These guys are very temperamental. I will normally just kind of stick my fingernails in this guy here, flip it open. You can tell I got some corrosion going on here. Just take just gonna take a Q-tip and just rub it. I've got several Q-tips over here, so I'm just gonna primarily just try to get some of that gunk off, if you can. Now the biggest thing here is make sure if you do decide to do this, that you pay attention when you take out the batteries. One's positive, one's negative. It will actually tell you on the door which one's positive and which one's negative. Positive is the flat portion up. Negative is the bumpy part. I like to call this the bumpy part. Now one thing you can do here is just clean it off real good with just a Q-tip. And then sometimes you have to kind of thump them or whatever to try to get that other one out. Because these things are tricky to get out, I'm telling you. Like, I don't know about you guys, but watch batteries are sometimes the bane of most people's existence. Especially those toy collectors. Real pain about getting these out sometimes. But just take this and rub real good on there just to get all that corrosion off these. And it's like I said, I mean, they're not going to be perfect. Sometimes the batteries themselves can be dead. That could be part of the problem. And just sometimes the corrosion's built up so bad that it just doesn't want to work. And then what I'll do is I'll take a little bit of alcohol here. And I will tip a Q-tip into the alcohol. And then I will go around and around and around the rim with just get all the excess garbage off of it. As I pick up garbage, I don't know how I did that, but you know, that happens. But mainly to get all the stuff off of it, because you don't want a soaking wet Q-tip ever. And then I will go down in here, and you can see I've got some corrosion on there. Not anything ribbon on that one, so take this and put it around on there, clean it up real good. And you see I got a little bit of corrosion still on there. And that's when I will take a screwdriver and kind of scrape on it a little bit. Just trying to get some of the corrosion off. It's never going to be 100% perfect. If you guys out there think it's going to be perfect, it's going to completely fix your toy 100%, normally that's not a good idea. Thinking that's going to happen. Now I'll just take the other end here and I'll dry it up a little bit. It's a lot cleaner than what it was. Normally it's only one post. That's something I've noticed with every one of these, by the way. Normally only one of the posts tends to get a lot of this corrosion. And if you got some corrosion on this thing here too, you can use your same Q-tip you just used. Try to clean it off the best you can. One disclaimer though, when you're using some of the alcohol, be careful because sometimes it can take away the paint on your toys. So keep that in mind when you're trying to clean your toys. And let's put this thing here back together now. Make sure my positive is positive and negative is negative. So negative side. Positive side. Watch this in here start working since the other two decided not to. That'll be my work, because that's just how it works. Okay, there we go. These are very tricky to get in, by the way. Probably feel for the parents out there that had to deal with this. Why did they have to invent such a toy that's so hard to replace a battery on? Now see, I've got the bay all put together here. Let's see if it lights up. Nope. No light up. See? Still no light up. I really do blame the batteries. I think the batteries on a lot of my stuff is dead because it's just, they're old. They just need replaced. It happens. Normally that will fix the issue with a lot of these guys though. Putting the screw back in, making sure I'm not going to strip the plastic. You got to keep that in mind though, you're going to strip plastic if you don't do it. Alright. Anyway, let's get into looking at the actual problem this guy here has. This guy's got a major problem, worse than his actually, because I've rarely ever have gotten him to stand up correctly. I'm just going to partially transform him here. And take the arms here and bring them up. Now the three things we're after here is this screw, that screw, and that screw. So I'm going to take those three screws out. I call these my shoulder screws and the crotch screw. And these are waist screw, either one. And normally what I'll do is I will just gingerly work on it until it pops loose, like that one just did. You got to keep in mind though, when you're doing this, you want to apply a consistent pressure as you're undoing these screws, so that way you don't strip the plastic part. But remember, you got a piece of metal being driven through plastic. That plastic can strip over time if you're not careful, especially if you take your toys apart quite often. I know this for a fact because I've took many toys apart, and not just toys, but like electronics and car parts and stuff like that. And if you keep a consistent pressure, there we go. Now we'll keep these screws separate, by the way. But keep a consistent pressure on stuff, it'll help a lot. Alright. Now the part here I'm going to do is I'm actually going to separate this portion here. The arms and such stay. But I've lifted up the hood a little bit here so that way I can get it off, and then I'll this loose and come right off just like so. If you noticed, his head came off with it. His head is actually kind of wedged in there. I'm going to leave it in there. Now his head's on a mushroom peg, so it can just fit right back in. It goes right in between this little area right here. So, but let's take a look at the waist piece. And if you notice that it's kind of trying to pull up, but this is the O-ring I was telling you about. This part right here literally can crack and turn into powder after a while. Okay, so just lift it off, just like so. And then the whole waist piece here, this right here does not have a rubber grommet, much like the other ones did. The other ones actually had a rubber grommet. This guy here actually had a rubber grommet on it. This one did not. Oops. I'm trying to look at the camera and not look at what I was doing. Yeah. Stand up. Okay. He's good. Alright. Anyway, I'm going to take this and I will literally just kind of pull this plastic piece completely off. And as I do that, you got your rubber piece here. And if you can notice, you can look in here and see how much going on. You literally just have this one little rubber piece here, and you take this piece here off, just push it down off the hook. And you can tell this thing is knackered. It's really, really, really bad. So bad it's actually got indentions on the sides. And surprisingly, every one of them I pulled off. I haven't found one that's like literally snapped in half yet. Anyway, we're going to go over here and grab some of the little O-rings I got. And I got these O-rings off of eBay. Several sellers out there actually sell these things. They're not hard to get hold of. Literally look for G.I. Joe O-rings and you will end up finding one of these. Anyway, if you guys are looking at this thing here, it is purposely bent like that. Do not try bending this piece back. This is a piece of metal. It will snap. When it snaps, it's done. You might as well source you a new robot at that point because it's going to be very hard to replace this part. Anyway, I'm going to take this and kind of push it down like so. It goes right over that hook, really easy. And then I'm going to take the waist piece and then I don't remember which direction was this. And then push this rubber piece here right back through the hole. As you're doing this, keep like a consistent pressure. This is where patience comes in. Keep a constant pressure on that hook so when it goes through, just like that. And there you go. Now you've got a waist. Go back on the actually I think I got this thing backwards. Pretty sure I got that part back. So pop it back off just a little bit. If you do that, it's simple to do. It literally can twist it. I'm going to try to twist it without the rubber band twisting if you can get away with it. If not, just take it completely off. Like that might have to be. Or will I? I'm pretty sure I have that. Tricky, tricky, tricky. Very tricky. Oh, see? Rubber band came right off. Gotta watch out for that. Going through all this and I'm probably putting it on backward. That's what happens sometimes. Okay, there we go. Got it. If you notice, it's still kind of floppy. When you put the tension on this right here and hold it by the waist, it actually will increase the tension on the legs and the legs will not be as floppy. That's part of the trick to the rubber band. Now something I noticed on the last one actually didn't have a rubber grommet in between. Well, that is actually posing a problem because it doesn't give you enough tension to hold the piece together. So I'm gonna do, I take the old grommet that I've got, and I will actually push the old grommet back through, and then I'll set it down in this recess. This is a whole recessed area here, and it'll work pretty good because the plastic part will actually push against it and then keep it all like nice and tight. It's kind of giving him a belt. Anyway, I'm gonna put this part here right back over. When I do this, if you notice, this piece here, you're going to try to keep these two little pieces of rubber bands. You just got to stay within the actual green plastic piece here. Just like so. You want to try to keep it in between there, because then whenever you start putting this back together, you won't pinch the rubber band between it. And I'm just holding it just like this. The other part here is you got to take this part here and shove this down in, and then put that all back together. When you do this, make sure everything goes flush. Mine actually pop together fairly easy, just like that. If you're already noticing, his legs are already holding a lot tighter. I have not even put one screw in there yet, and he's already holding together much better than he did before. Alright, I'm going to put this waist screw back in. It's like I said, I mean, this is a fix to fix these guys. A lot of people out there think, oh well, you know, it might be a smaller rubber band would probably pull more tension, but the thing is, you have to have some tension in there, but you also have to have some play in there. If you don't have too much play, then you can't actually do anything with the toy. You'll probably make it so that way its waist will actually be so tight that you can't move it. You don't want that, because then you've got other issues happening, because you could possibly break like a connection part or something like that when you're trying to transform him. By the way, when I'm putting these screws in, I'm not pushing extremely hard. I'm putting like very ginger pressure on it, just to make sure it doesn't overstrain. And that's something I've noticed with these two here. The waist issue seems to be a big thing with these guys. Oh. I'm going to put him back in his little robot mode. Now I'm going to flip his little feet out, because he's got to have his feet. Well, I can tell you right now already, I can already tell a major difference between what I was able to do with him before. I couldn't even get him to do that. So if that tells you anything, that really fixed part of the issue he was having in the first place. I mean, these guys are very difficult to come across without them actually having a major waist problem. I mean, that rubber band does a good job of holding it. I wouldn't top heavy. He's actually more top heavy than his two little counterparts there. I mean, these two here are really going to have that waist issue, I think, for a while. He tends to be better just because the engineering is different on the inside. They actually have a rubber grommet on the inside of him, and that's what makes the major difference. Something I did notice when I did take these guys apart. It's a thing that I think they discontinued using because they were like, oh well, it's cheaper to make these like this. And they do the splits. Okay, fine. Standard. But that's your laser rods. They're not bad. They're fairly easy to fix. It's not a hard thing to do. But anyhow, this has been Plasticon. This has been yet another little quick review type of repair thing. So that way it gives you guys a bit of an idea of some of the quirks dealing with these guys. I would love to see a modernized version of these guys, but you know, that's wishful thinking as far as I'm concerned at this point. Anyhow, this has been Plasticon. This has been yet another repair a toy thing. I will catch you guys later because, you know, everything's perfect and things need fixed. I got plenty more. I'll talk to you later. Bye. It's just a quick little update thing, but I started actually looking at the issue with the rubber band. Turns out I don't believe the rubber band is the problem. I believe it's this little piece right here. This is the waist piece that we were hooking everything to, and they go onto the leg pieces. What I've decided to do is break out some. I just have like a hard as nails, cheap, clear nail polish. I tend to buy some of the stuff to tighten up joints. And I believe the problem is lying in the actual joint pieces here. Because I've noticed everything else seems to be kind of tight, it's just that those joints there. Now, I do suggest whenever you do decide to take these things apart, you've got to be extremely careful because the way this here looks, I know this looks kind of awful, but I believe that's probably because there might have been a teeny tiny amount of glue that was actually put on that portion, because the screw goes through here to actually hold these together. And the way I actually separated it is I put a screwdriver in there. This is a very, very fine tip screwdriver I have. I use this thing for a lot of things, and I was able to wedge it in there to pop it apart, and I had to be extremely careful. But I did apply some of that to it, and it'll take a little while for it to dry, but once it gets dried, I will end up putting it back together to see if it actually holds together. So we'll find out. clearly you guys can tell after putting him back together, we're applying a little bit of this. That actually fixed him, and I actually removed the extra O-ring that I put in there. And it works. It's not bad. I think that actually fixed him a lot better. He's still a little wobbly on top, but I mean, I think that's probably more or less, like I said, it's due to the fact he doesn't have that O-ring portion that this in here does, because it creates friction that this does not have. So, and it's actually a pretty good fix. So if you guys think that that rotator may be an alternative for you guys, go ahead and try doing that. I do suggest, like I said, when you do this part, don't go all out crazy, because it could potentially cause problems if you're not a really careful-handed person when it comes to handling these things, when it comes to taking things apart. If you don't like taking things apart, I don't suggest doing this, but if you do, go for it, try it out. Yeah, that was a quick little update to what I did, so there you go.